Yo, what up? So I'm gonna show you how I make pizza dough. So I use pretty much a KitchenAid mixer with a dough hook, and I have my bowl. First thing you do is you're gonna measure out your flour, and what I usually do is make it into 3/4 goes into the bowl now, and then after that I'll put another quarter in later on. Usually I'm doing for 3 average size pizzas about 20.25 ounces of flour. So I'm going to cut that up. I'm going to do 15 ounces first and then 5.25 later on. .5 ounces of flour, and then I'll add that straight into the bowl. Then we're going to add the salt. I use garlic salt, but you can use kosher, and that's about 0.45 ounces of salt. And then I just add that right into the flour. You want to mix all the dry ingredients first. I use active yeast when I make pizza, 0.1 ounces. I just put that in too. What you do, I usually just use a hook to not have more dishes, and just mix it all up. All the dry ingredients. I'm gonna add 1 3/4 cup of water. I use cold water just for mine. Usually when I see people making pizza, they'll start mixing it already. But KitchenAid mixers can't mix enough of the flour together. Also, you want the flour to open up. So what I do is I use the dough hook and I just mix up and get the water all in the flour. Like so. That's it for 20 minutes. We're gonna come back to it, and then we'll start slowly mixing the dough. And the reason for this is it allows the KitchenAid with the dough hook to mix while the dough is not fully dough yet, and pull all that gluten out and stretch it. 20 minutes is over, so we're gonna put this on the KitchenAid. What we kind of want to do is just mix everything together. So I'll just do it on a low speed. It's been mixing for about 2 minutes now, and you can see there's still clumps. But what you want to do is do most of your mixing in this stage. So after 2 minutes, I'm going to turn it off, drop it back down, let it sit for another 20 minutes. Alright, so 20 minutes is up. Now what we're going to do is we're going to measure out the remaining flour and slowly add it in. What I like to do is use a plate, because what you're going to do is, depending on how much moisture is in the air, that's how much flour you're going to add. So it's not an exact recipe. Put this up. Like I said before, you want to start mixing now when it looks kind of like cake batter. So I usually let it mix like this for about 3 minutes before I start adding more flour into the mix. Okay, so I slowed it down a little bit after 2 minutes. I'm going to start adding this flour slowly. Just let it mix and blend everything together. Get a spatula and go around the edges just to get all the flour mixed in. Getting closer, I actually have to add more flour in than my recipe because it's so humid in Hawaii right now. So what you want is for the edges to start pulling away and start cleaning the side of a bowl. See right there on the side how it's starting to clear up a little bit? It's essentially what you want, but I like it a little bit more, and since it's so humid, I want it to be on the slightly drier side, so when it's sitting out and resting and the yeast is eating, the dough is actually going to be soft. At this point I'm going to add a tiny bit more flour and we should be good. Remember, you always can add more flour, but don't add too much because it's harder to add water and make the dough less, less stiff. Okay, I'm gonna let this go for another maybe minute or so, and then I'm gonna put it out and let it rest again on the table. Right now I'm gonna turn it off, sprinkle some flour on the table. Okay, so essentially, put it out on the table. Make sure there's enough flour all over it. And since it's been in the machine, it's been pulling. And now you just want it to relax. So you're gonna let it relax for 20 minutes on the table. I get a towel, put it over, just let it sit for 20 minutes. So now that the dough has been resting for 20 minutes, it's time to make little small dough balls. And that's what the pizza will actually be made out. There's two ways of doing it. One, you can leave the dough out, and the other one, you can put it in a Ziploc container and leave it in the fridge. If you're gonna make pizza the same day as your dough, you probably wanna let it sit out for about 2 hours, and then it will double in size and you'll be able to make the pizza. If not, you can have it in the fridge for 24 hours in a Ziploc container, and it'll be about the same thing. The only difference is when it's in the fridge, you have to pull it out of the fridge and let it sit and warm up before you actually can start making pizza with it. So normally what I do, I'll take parchment paper and I'll put my dough right on top of there. Usually I'll get my scale, I'll put a paper plate and I'll dust some flour on top of the paper plate, zero it out, and then start cutting up my dough. I take my dough, and in grams, it's about 300 grams for about a 15 to 16 inch pizza. So I usually do a little less than that, maybe 300. So that's about 300. So now that I've cut all these pieces up, I'll try to push them all together so it's one piece. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it and I'm going to fold it into each other. And if you can see the dough, it's really nice and soft. And that's what you want. So just into each other, into each other, to each other, into each other. Pull it tight on the bottom. I kind of just pinch it on the bottom. Try to close it up because you want the air to stay in because the yeast will actually blow up these. And then what I do usually is I'll roll it around. So the bottom is more secure. Let's place it inside the pan. So a little over, just cut it in half. Be small, choose those small pizzas. So there you go, pizza balls. Now I've noticed that when you let it sit out and not go in the fridge, they kind of dry out. So what I like to do this way, I have some olive oil, non-stick spray, and I'll just lightly spray the top of all of them. And that will help the top stay moist. Then take my same towel and I'll put it over. In a dark, cool area for about 2 hours. If you wanted to make the Ziploc container one in the fridge, I usually use these Ziploc containers. And what you'll do, you'll take that non-stick spray and you'll spray it all around and put it on the top too. Roll the dough ball around, stick it in the fridge for about 24 hours, and it should be the same as waiting out 2 hours. Remember, the importance is the waiting periods, and I can't stress that enough. So make sure you have a lot of time to make pizza. Don't rush into it. Don't mix them all. Don't mix all the ingredients up at once. Just enjoy the making process. So that's pretty much my dough recipe. Try it out. Let me know how it is. And yeah, I'll show you what it looks like when it's all finished.
in about 2 hours.